what's up, YouTube? Brad Hoover from Rants here. As always, guys, if y'all enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave that comment down below. Alright, so it's wokeness or superhero fatigue. What is exactly killing the MCU? Now, I do a lot of, it seems like everything that I touch now when it comes to Rants has to do with wokeness in some form or fashion. Frankly, I'm sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of even talking about it. Because I feel like it should just be a nothing. It should be, there's either a good film or a bad film, and I hate it on its merits or love it on its merits. I hate the political drama, the social crap that they try to, the narratives that they try to place in there. I hate anything that has to do with, putting diversity over great movies, great scripts. Don't like it. Diversity in itself is a really noble cause, really good thing, something that all movies should promote to do. There's nothing wrong with it at all. It should be promoted. At the same time, it should never be promoted over good scripts and great characters. Rey was a terrible character because she was one-dimensional, not because she was a woman. You could have had Luke Skywalker in that same movie, playing that same part, and you would have had the exact same thing if that was the first time that he had ever been seen. If he had never been fleshed out, you wouldn't have a Star Wars. Simply because it was identity politics over actually making the movie, the individual character, interesting in a lot of different ways. But I don't think that is what is killing the MCU. I think it is what they're trying to push out right now is killing the MCU. Think about what we had. Think about when you think of the MCU, what do you think about? You think of Iron Man. You think of Captain America. You think of Black Panther. You think of those characters. One thing, Ant-Man really didn't do that great. And me and my wife, we were watching Ant-Man again. It was actually one of my son's favorite movies now. Uh, it He's a lesser known character, and it didn't really do that good. I think that is what is hurting the MCU more than anything. Now you could say, well, it has to do with them trying to push specific narratives, and that is, I could buy into that. And so that's the reason why they're picking a lot of these, you know, characters that no one knows anything about, or either they're, female or, diverse or whatever. Totally get that argument. But as far as wokeness killing the MCU, I don't think it is. I think it is they've ran out of ideas. And let me just go through this Bounding into Comics article, and I'll try to explain my point on this. See if y'all agree. It says, following the triumphant end of Phase 3 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Disney's follow-up properties have been limping over the finish line, battered and bruised. So far, its Phase 4 Hollywood productions have failed to garner much interest, with the recently released Eternals bombing hard at the box office. Uh, Prior to that, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings barely made its budget back before turning a minuscule profit in comparison to all the MCU films that came before. Even established characters like Natasha Romanoff couldn't make it work in Black Widow, which made only a fraction of what it should have. Now, right now, I just want to stick with the movies. What are the movies that they brought out in Phase 4? Eternals. How many people were calling for Eternals? Nobody. Nobody was calling for Eternals. Nobody was wanting Eternals. I thought when, the idea first come out there, I thought, well, hey, this is an interesting concept. It's something new. It's something different. But that was the reason why they picked it in a lot of different ways. It's because it was new and different. Fans couldn't pick it apart. But at the same time, there was no fan base for the Eternals. No one was clamoring for these characters. There was no good or bad press because no one cared about those characters. So why would you expect that movie to do great at the box office? You would do good if you're MCU thinking that this is actually going to do good simply because of its name. It's an MCU movie. Well, it didn't. Fans turned away. They didn't want it. Another one, Shang-Chi. How many people were calling for a Shang-Chi movie? Hardly anybody, if anybody at all. Never heard anybody that was a gigantic Shang-Chi fan that wanted a Shang-Chi movie. No one wanted that. MCU put it out there. And what did they get? They got really poor results. It was a decent movie, unlike the Eternals and Black Widow, which actually made it make back some of its money, but it still didn't garner any attraction. Now, as far as Black Widow is concerned, no doubt, Black Widow during the height of the MCU, if you would have done this before Endgame, made this movie before Endgame, this would have been a hit. Would have been an absolute hit. Doesn't matter how bad it was, it would have been a hit. But at the same time, because we had seen all these failure after failure after failure, fans start seeing a pattern, and they're like, wait a second. In phases 1 through 3, you gave us Iron Man, Captain America, Black Panther. You gave us all of these characters, Winter Soldier, all these interesting characters. And then in phase 4, you give us Eternals, which we know absolutely nothing about. You give us Shang-Chi, which we don't care about, nor know much about. And then you give us a Black Widow film, which is really 3 years too late in a lot of different ways. 3 or 4 years too late. Simply because it it was just wrong timing for it. Now, was Black Widow a good movie? It was not a good movie. It was one movie I will personally never watch ever again. I think it's that bad from beginning to end. I felt like the first 30 minutes were brilliant. I will give it that. But then after that, it was just, it tore it apart. It tore the 30 minutes that was good apart. My goodness, they had a joke about a hysterectomy, about a forced hysterectomy. If that's not out of taste, I don't know what is. Why would anybody go to see a movie that talks about a joke about a forced hysterectomy? No one would do that. That's not funny in any way. Yet somebody thought that would be a really cool thing to do for a Black Widow movie. So that's the reason why Black Widow failed in a lot of ways. Simply because it was too little, too late. That's it. And as far as the Eternal and Shang-Chi, it failed because no one cared. Cared because no one cared. All right, next up. Uh, on the TV front, things aren't going much better. WandaVision started out with a lot of potential, but it fell apart in its final few episodes thanks to some poor narrative choices. Then there was the disaster that was Falcon and Winter Soldier, which boiled over with controversy and caused a ton of viewers to tune out in the middle of the second episode. Next up was Loki, which Disney touted as a mammoth success, only for the actual viewership numbers to paint a different story. And finally, Hawkeye, which is currently the least watched show on the streaming platform. Now, I feel like when it comes to the TV front of the MCU, they really start. I felt like they started off strong, but I feel like the way WandaVision ended, and like they said, the poor choices. Building up all of these hints, like it was making people crazy, wondering what the next week was going to bring, what was really going to happen, what was all this about, and then they just boiled it all down to a boner joke. The two visions fighting turned out to be just them talking about a boat. Wanda actually trying to promote herself as a hero after she had just enslaved an entire town. all of these different things made it a disaster. Made it an absolutely, totally a disaster. So after that, it was just a snowball going down to hell at this point. It was they had already set up the failure, and people after WandaVision was like, why do I want to turn into the next series when what if you do us the exact same way? Now, a lot of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a lot of the build up to it was, oh, it's going to be kind of like WandaVision that way, and that it's going to leave fans guessing. It didn't. All it did was promote really this a toy line. At the end of the day, we can call it whatever it is about them promoting woke narratives, talking about racism a little too much. A lot of these things that usually fans of the MCU really don't want to hear about too much. All of that kind of stuff. Um, but at the end of the day, it was all about a toy line. It was all about a toy line. It was about selling instead of the Falcon, it was selling him in Sam Wilson in a Captain America suit. That was it. That was all that was about. That's all that was about. It was boring. It had no interesting villain to really inspire it. Where you could say WandaVision actually did. Um, so that was a train wreck all the way around. As far as Loki is concerned, Loki was good when they let Loki be Loki. But the very first thing that they did in the very first episode is that they made the Infinity Stones into a joke, which completely and totally did away with, three phases of the MCU. And then they basically sidelined Loki, calling him not even the best Loki, um, for for a female character, and people were like, okay, this is just a bait and switch. You're calling this Loki, but you're not really having much Loki, and it doesn't feel like Loki. That was, of course, name recognition was going to cause fans to tune into the show, but it wasn't going to keep their interest. Now, as far as Hawkeye is concerned, Hawkeye is another one. Who was calling for a Hawkeye series? Who was really wanting to see a Hawkeye series? And then to add insult to injury, when you make this Hawkeye series, you don't even make it about the Hawkeye that we all know and love. You don't even make it about him. You make it about him, giving over his Hawkeye persona to someone else. And of course, it has to be a female that's better than he is at everything. And she already knows everything. He's not necessarily a mentor figure because you can't have a male as a mentor figure. So that is the reason why that show fails, is because simply it doesn't add any value. And that's the reason why it fails. It's not necessarily, there might be little sprinkles of wokeism that causes these MCU properties to fail now, where that they didn't. But at the end of the day, there is no Iron Man, there is no Captain America, there is no Black Panther, there is none of them that are coming to the rescue. Of course, we're going to have Black Panther too, and I bet you it's going to make a lot of money. But at the end of the day, is it going to make the same money as what the original one did? Probably not. Because the guy that we all know as Black Panther is no longer with us, unfortunately. So it's going to be a movie trying to explain that away in some form or fashion, which I think is kind of almost insulting to him in a lot of different ways. Uh, but overall, when you want to push a Miss Marvel, when you want, or the Marvels or whatever it's called, when you want to push, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and instead of having, the quirky Marvel humor, and instead putting in, a really dark thing about racism, and making it all about selling a toy line, and then the bad ending of WandaVision, and then of course you have, the movies that no one wanted to see, the Eternals, Shang-Chi, and Black Widow was a little too late. So at the end of the day, is it wokeism that's killing the MCU? No, it's poor choices in the movies and the series that they are making. Loki will be a hit. Loki will be a hit in season 2 if they would just let Loki be Loki. Don't let Tom Hiddleston be him. This show is going to be good. It's going to be good. It really is. Is it going to be, groundbreaking? Probably not. But it's going to be good enough. It's going to feel like Marvel. The problem is nothing has felt like Marvel since Endgame, and that's the problem. Everything else has felt like its own thing, like an agenda, like characters that we don't know, characters we don't care about. There is no Iron Man or Captain America coming to save the day. There's just not. And that's going to hurt the MCU moving forward because there is no Robert Downey Jr. in it anymore. And whoever, what, if you want to replace that character, you're not going to. Fans aren't going to accept it, and then you're going to have problems with it. So overall, will I say that there are sprinkles of wokeism that's causing some problems? Of course, there is, but at the end of the day, I do believe that it's just a poor choice in characters that they wanted to promote for Phase 4. And whether that continues, further on in Phase 4, we'll just have to see. We know that we are going to get, a Doctor Strange, so, but will he be sidelined in his own movie? Who knows? It seems like a lot of these white male characters are being sidelined. Um, and whether people like it or not, they're the faces of those, particular identities. There's no way that you're going to be able to replace those characters and fans are going to accept it. They're just not. But you know what? Marvel, make better movies, make better series, and make it about people that we actually care about, and you'll get our viewership back. But as always, guys, let me know what y'all think. Do y'all think wokeism is killing the MCU? Or do you actually believe it's superhero fatigue? I don't believe it's superhero fatigue. I don't believe that it's wokeness quite as much. I do believe a little bit of that sprinkled in there and is causing some problems, but it's just a bad choice in which characters they're wanting to promote, which is, maybe you could say, is a form of wokeism. But I just think it's poor choice on Marvel. I really do. But they still make their money, so they're cool with it. Anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.